Hello again. My name is Tio and I'm from the Student Learning Support Service. In this video, we are going to continue our discussion on oral presentations. And we will discuss specifically the areas of assessments and also how to deal with nerves. This short video will discuss assessment points and how to deal with nerves when preparing for presentations. The first two items, planning and structure, are covered in another video. Don't forget to watch that video if you have not done so yet. Next, we're going to talk about assessment. How are presentations often assessed? First, clarity. All right. The person who assesses your presentation will look at how clear the information you have presented is and how you have presented them in a logical kind of manner. Your presentation will also be assessed in terms of the scope of information. In other words, you should not be presenting too many points and at the same time too few points. So present 3 or 4 points, but provide enough depth to convince the audience of your points. Your presentation will be assessed in terms of structure. In other words, the flow, if you have an introduction, and if you have the middle where the points flow from one to the next, and if you have a conclusion. It will also be assessed in the form of the reasoning or take-home message. In other words, have you convinced your audience? And is the take-home message clear enough? Of course, you will also be assessed in terms of your eye contact and interaction with the audience, as well as other factors such as the clarity of your voice. If no one can hear you clearly, or if you don't engage with your audience, you will lose marks for that. You will also, of course, be evaluated on your ability to handle questions. And in this case, you may want to think ahead about how you're going to do that and predict the kind of questions which you may get. There is nothing more annoying than a presenter who spends way too long, or way above the time limit given. So practice, practice, practice. Make sure that you conclude your talk within the time frame, not too early and not too much overboard. And now we will talk about nerves. When asked to give a presentation, have you ever experienced the following when you give a presentation or before you give a presentation? Do you get really nervous before you're supposed to go up the stage and talk? Or do you get tongue-tied? Or do you feel like nauseous and you feel like you want to vomit? Or do you sometimes struggle to find the right words to describe something? Or do your knees get wobbly? And do you stay awake the entire night the day before, worrying about the presentation beforehand? How do we stop nerves from happening? Well, theoretically, there is no solution for this. It is okay to be nervous. Even the best presenters are often nervous. And some people say that nerves are actually good as long as you know how to deal with that, because it forces you to prepare yourself better. If you feel really nervous, it's okay to tell the audience that you feel nervous. The audience will be able to relate to that because, well, presumably many of the people in the audience will also be presenting or have just presented, so they can relate to how you feel. Again, the more prepared you are, the better and the more confident you will feel. So the issue now is practice. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more confident you are, and the more you will feel that I know what I'm in there for. Right. Know your materials beforehand. All right. And do some rehearsals, including dress rehearsals. So dress up for the occasion, stand in front of a mirror, get your mobile phone ready, record yourself. You can even take video recordings of yourself and then play it back. See what you have actually delivered and how you have presented. That way you can figure out exactly when to pause, when to slow down, when to get to move your audience, and so on and so forth. It gives you a good idea of how the presentation will take place, so that you can pinpoint the potential problems which you may have. Plus, it makes you feel more confident when you go on the stage, because you know exactly what you're supposed to do. And realize this: the moment you step on the stage, the moment you say the first few words, nerves usually subside, and you will start to feel more and more confident as you progress along your presentation. Do note that regardless of where your studies take you, the ability to speak in public and give a good presentation is always useful. You will find yourself in various situations in life where you will be forced to do public speaking, talk in front of a crowd, or present to a group of colleagues in a meeting, and these skills will help you to progress your career as well as your social life in general. Remember that when you present, always maintain eye contact with your audience. Focus on them, not on you. Alright, so one of the tricks which we tend to do when we present to the audience is we sweep around the audience. Alright, so in other words, you look as though you are staring at the audience, and you move from the left to the right and then back to the left again, and that's called sweeping your eyes across the audience. Now, it's not that you're actually looking at the audience one by one, but it gives the idea or the impression that you are looking at the audience. Trust your memories, all right? Trust the fact that your slides will act as prompts for you to go through the points one by one, all right? Always arrive early and be prepared. Bring water in case you feel dehydrated along the way. Practice your breathing, all right? You can practice your breathing, arrive early, be prepared. So everything which you can do, try to do it beforehand. Matter of fact, it's a good idea to visit the venue of the place at least early in the morning before you give the presentation, so that you know exactly what to expect. While you present, don't forget to smile. It's funny how important smiling is. You'll find that when you smile, the audience will react. And when the audience smile back, you will build more and more confident as you present along the way. Pace yourself. Don't rush to finish. If you rush thinking that I want to go through this quickly, you will find that the audience will not be able to relate to your presentation. So it's important to pace yourself. It is important to realize that the audience is there to listen to you, provide information, or to persuade them or to motivate them, which is why the idea is not for you to present as quickly as you can and finish it off. So the idea is actually to deliver what you're going there for. And if you have a lot of anxiety, if you feel that you're truly nervous, do drop by and seek the health and counseling services at Flinders University, so that you can talk to someone to soothe your nerves. According to Bovey and Thiel, there are ways for you to look more confident when you present. Again, don't rush and pace yourself. When you rush, to the audience, it seems as though you are ill-prepared and you are too nervous. So don't rush. Make sure that you go through all the points one by one, but at the same time adhere to the time limit which you have been given. Control your posture or position. Don't walk around too much on the stage, because that can be very distracting. At the same time, if you have been given a podium, make sure that your hands are at the side of the podium, or don't lean too much onto the podium. Instead, stand confidently, vary your facial expression. Facial expressions are important because they are a form of nonverbal communication. Whether you feel passionate about something, whether you feel angry about something, whether you feel that something is urgent, all that should appear on your facial expressions as well. Again, maintain eye contact with your audience and use appropriate gestures. There are many gestures which politicians use when they have speeches. Some of the gestures, for example, like using your thumb to point. Using a thumb to point is actually a good gesture because it indicates respect in many different cultures. And at the same time, gestures are part of nonverbal communication as well. So audience can always relate to the gestures as something which help to support your points and emphasize your points as well. Control your voice, as in control the either the tone, the pitch, as well as the loudness of your voice. So learn to throw your voice. All right, throwing your voice is not literally throwing your voice, but basically talking in a way which is not shouting, but at the same time the people at the back of your the stage or the venue can hear what you say. One of the things which you may want to consider when you provide your speech is to think about ethos. What does ethos means? Ethos is basically about establishing credentials. In other words, how do you suggest or show your audience that you are a person with credibility, someone who they can trust? It is important to establish credibility because that's the first step to delivering your message. Ethos is often discussed together with pathos and logos. However, we're not going to cover these two aspects today. This will be a discussion for another video. Instead, we will talk about the first factor of ethos, which is trustworthiness and respect. So when it comes to giving a speech, how would you provide the audience a feeling that you are a person who is trustworthy and a person who they can respect? This could come in various forms. It could be something as simple as how you dress, as in how formal you dress, or it could be something in the form of establishing the fact that you have done a lot of research or study in a particular field, and so on and so forth. The next aspect to consider is similarity to the audience. All right. Now, what this means is basically providing the audience a sense that you understand how they feel. You know where they're coming from. Okay. So establishing that is very important because it helps the audience to understand that, okay, this is a person who can relate to me or who I can relate to. Okay. The next aspect is authority. And this is basically establishing the fact that you have authority over a particular topic or subject. This can be in the form of an educational qualification. For example, if you're a doctor or a professor in a particular field, or if you have worked in a particular field for a long time, or if you're a student that you have spent a number of hours researching a particular field. And finally, it is about expertise and reputation, which also relates to authority in a particular field. In other words, whether you have the kind of reputation, whether you have the kind of expertise in a particular area or topic for the discussion. So, 4 different aspects for you to consider in establishing ethos. How does one answer questions from the audience? Well, you may want to motivate questions. Most of the time, or very often, the audience will not have any question to ask you. So you need to be prepared for that kind of scenario. Instead, you may want to encourage the audience to ask you questions. And perhaps it could become in the form of an incentive. It could come in the form of you asking the audience about something. So instead of them asking you a question, you ask the audience a question, which will force them to ask you another question back. You may want to focus on the questioner or the person who asks you the question when you answer a particular question. That gives the questioner the feeling that whatever he or she has asked is being answered by you. You need to maintain control when you answer questions. In other words, you may want to have some ground rules, which means that you may want to explain beforehand that you would answer perhaps only 3 questions. For example, I'm happy to answer 3 questions from the audience. Let's start from the first one, and then you go to the second one or the third one. Or you may want to say, make sure that you have the microphone when you ask a question. All right, that controls the audience from shouting questions all over the place. And of course, you want to respond appropriately. In other words, you want to answer the question specific to the domains of the question itself and not stray from the question. You need to survive the hot seat. In other words, if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know. All right, you need to be honest and you need to keep your cool. Don't argue with the person who asked the question, because that will go nowhere. So here's a checklist for you to prepare for your presentation. Again, write your paper in full, reduce it to the key points, check your timing, create PowerPoints which will follow your key point arguments so that you have a logical flow. Read your work aloud, assess for suitability in terms of the language and visuals, do a spelling and grammar check when necessary, establish a dress rehearsal, know your material, use this to anticipate questions, breathe in, breathe out, have fun, practice, practice, practice. That's the most important thing of all. Again, before the presentation, keep calm and be prepared. And the way to do this, as I've stressed many times throughout the video, practice. The more you practice, the more confident you will feel. In this short video, we have covered how to assess your presentation preparations and also how to calm your nerves. We hope that you have benefited from the video and can use the information to your advantage. All the best for your presentation. What other resources can help you prepare for your presentations? You can watch the video called Oral Presentation Visuals, which will help explain how to create better aids for your presentation. Alternatively, if you have not watched the first half of this presentation, Oral Presentation, Planning and Structure, make sure that you don't miss that.